Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild. The Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing games with friends and families can create. Today we will be talking about pointless games. Games without victory points.
Nice!
That's right, those pointless games.
I really like the pun you worked in there. That's perfect.
That's probably about the best one we've had so far. Okay, so who wants to get this party started? I got some good ones. I have a feeling I'm trying to get some in real quick before Nathan does, so it's his choice if he goes first.
Oh, I struggled with this one, actually. I don't know if Peter missed the meeting, so he may not know that we had put some restrictions on ourselves where we weren't going to talk about cooperative games, because pretty much every cooperative game falls under this.
Okay.
Any escape room game falls under this.
Okay. So far I'm doing good.
That seems to restrict it quite a bit. All right.
Yeah, no, I struggled with this too, and I apologize if I gave you guys a high hurdle to clear here by even suggesting this topic. But the point of the discussion is, how do games end? Oh, well, the game ends and then you count up points and you see who wins. Okay, what happens when that doesn't happen? Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I'm happy not having been to the meeting. None of mine fall under those two restrictions. So I'm doing decent, but I've only got a list of 3 right now. So I didn't know how many you guys were going to be coming up with. So
you missed the free cake.
I missed the free cake.
You missed the free cake. And it's just the one meeting you miss and you don't get any cake.
And that's the one where we have cake. Fine, whatever.
Yeah, I've got at least 4 with more possibles if we want to touch on games that do use victory points but also have interesting twists at the end, which we might want to touch on.
Okay.
I have 12.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I feel like we're going to have a lot of semantic arguments about what we consider a victory point.
No, these are 100% no victory points.
Okay.
I was going to say same with mine.
All right, well, you've got the most, James. Why don't you start us off?
Okay, well, I'm going to try to knock ones out that I think other people would have on their list.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I'm evil.
Oh yeah, do that. So I have nothing to talk about later.
Okay, nothing. Actually, you probably won't have this one because I don't believe the game's out yet. But Nathan and I had the pleasure of playing it. So I'm going to be talking about the game Nova Luna by Stronghold Games. It was designed by Uwe Rosenberg. And in the game, if you ever played Patchwork, which is another game, or other games similar, what you're going to do is you're going to have a dial on there, and there's going to be different tiles you can pick. And depending on the tile you pick, which can be 3 away from the moon piece, which is pretty cool, you get a tile, and the tile has a time rating on it, and it has patterns that if you match those patterns, you get to take one of your discs and put it on the tile. And there can be multiple different goal patterns you're supposed to meet. So what ends up happening is the game's a rondelle. So when you pick your time, you move your little piece farther down the track equal to that time. The person last gets to go again. So you might have multiple turns if another opponent grabs a high time piece. But the cool thing about the game and the balancing in the game is the ones with the highest time are a lot of the easiest patterns to complete. So you try to balance that out between getting the 7s or the 6s and getting the 2s and the 1s once you get your pattern set up. And the game ends simply when the first person uses all of their discs. No victory points, nothing. It's a really light, fun game with a lot of depth to it, a lot of abstract strategy. I've been loving playing it with my wife. I played it with Nathan when he came and visit. He's nodding because I stole one of his games.
No, actually. Well, first of all, if you want to find out more about this game, you can check out my review, which will be out by the time this podcast is out.
Yeah.
Second of all, I consider this a victory point game simply because it's basically those little checks are a point, and I was kind of considering that. I suppose I was a little too strict on this.
Yeah, you're definitely too strict on that. I would not consider anything where the game ends immediately. Meaning, I did it where you have to be comparing something.
Yeah, you never have to count in this.
No, you don't count. It's just simply the person who puts the last disc down wins, period. So for me, that is definitely a victory pointless game. There's no second place, or everyone loses but one person, and it's super fast too. I like that a lot. We play a couple games in a row when we play.
Okay.
So yeah, Nova Luna is my first one. And you guys want to try to throw one in there before I snatch it away?
I think I want to talk about one that I was nervous about putting in because I thought might be considered a victory point, but I feel a lot more comfortable about it now. That's Cosmic Encounters.
Oh.
So
Cosmic Encounters is not a victory point game. It's a terminal end. It's the person who has the 5. There's no comparison. Two people get 5, both win. So to say a little about Cosmic Encounter in case someone doesn't know.
So in Cosmic Encounter, you are playing the first person to have conquered 5 planets. You could consider that 5 victory points, but really it's not themed that way. It's an aggressive, asymmetrical game where everybody has unique player powers that are really, really, oftentimes really ridiculous over the top. But because everybody has over-the-top powers, you can kind of balance each other. You can see who's really powerful in a situation, and you can kind of gang up on them. So it's a player balance game.
Well, then I'm going to go ahead and dive in real quick, just because one of mine I know is very much like Cosmic Encounter, and that is because it is the recently updated and re-released by Gale Force 9 Dune. So it's very, very much like Cosmic Encounter, but based on the novel by Frank Herbert. And in this game, you're going to take control of one of 6 of the asymmetrical factions, and you're going to duke it out until one faction controls 3 strongholds. So unlike Cosmic Encounter, where you're looking for 5 of these, not victory points, of course, but these victories that you have in battle. Same thing here, but you're looking for 3 of the strongholds on the map that your faction controls. But again, you got to watch out because there are other ways to win rather than just getting the 3 strongholds. One quick example is the Bene Gesserit faction. Is they get to, at the very beginning of the game, they get to make a prediction as to who will win and in what round. And if they guess both of those things correctly, the person who won in that round doesn't win, the Bene Gesserit win instead. So there's little things like that throughout that game. So Dune, again, a lot like Cosmic Encounter, in that you are duking it out with each other with these asymmetrical factions who have some of them, like you said, crazy benefits to their game. But I've not played Cosmic Encounter. I have played Dune, and it is a really fun game to play. But I recommend definitely playing it with as many players as you can. Hopefully at 5 to 6. Played a couple of games with 3, and it's just not quite enough. I think you need at least 5 or 6 players to really flesh out the game. You want as many of those asymmetrical factions being played at one time to really get the feel for it.
So I have a question. Why have we not fixed the fact that he has not played Cosmic Encounter? We need to fix that.
Well, now I will say he does need to play Cosmic Encounter, but that doesn't take away from Dune. Dune is an amazing game. I love Dune. Nathan has my Grail game that is based on Twilight Imperium that is Dune, which is Rex. Yeah. Dune's an amazing game. You do need to play Cosmic Encounter. Pretty sure that's on Tabletop Simulator, so we could make that happen.
Let's make that happen.
Well, I don't know whose turn it is to pick the next game we all play together, but it's not me since I just picked 51st State. So somebody pick Cosmic Encounter because I've never actually sat down to a game of it.
Now, actually, we're not allowed to pick the next one because we had that poll up to decide what is going to be the next cooperative game we play. So now, between the 4 of us, we can just real briefly decide which one we're going to play as a segue because it's tied.
Oh, it's a tie.
It's a tie. What's tied?
So tied is Dead of Winter
or
The Lord of the Rings.
Ooh. Oh, gosh. Okay.
Well, I actually did vote on that poll, and I voted Dead of Winter.
I'm a Dead of Winter person, so I love Dead of Winter.
So I'm for. I have 2 monitors. Why not play both at once?
I don't know how that would work out.
I've played Dead of Winter. I think I've played one time, but 2 scenarios in that same evening. And then I've definitely played The Lord of the Rings, but I've only played it so far by myself. I've not played it with anybody else. But because I know how much James loves Dead of Winter, I actually want to play Dead of Winter again. So let's go for that one. That's my vote, Dead of Winter.
All right. So our little commercial break here we took. We're going to be doing Dead of Winter.
What? I don't count.
Oh, it's 3. It doesn't.
3 out of 4.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I mean, do you want to vote Dead of Winter and just close it in on a landslide?
Sure. Why not?
All right, back to our regularly scheduled discussion on games without victory. I was about to mention a game.
Yeah.
The game that I will mention is Euphoria, Build a Better Dystopia, also from Stonemaier Games. In this game, you start with 10 authority stars, and the game ends as soon as a player gets rid of their last star. Immediately, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
So the game mechanically uses dice as a worker placement mechanism. So you're placing dice on various spots on the board to collect resources and to convert resources and to draw artifact cards and to build markets is what they're called. And as you do these things, you open up the opportunity to put stars into the various zones on the board, because there's like 4 different zones on the board, and each one has a number of victory slots equal to the number of players in the game. Plus, you have an opportunity to put a star on a special card that you get at the beginning that's sort of like unique to you, I guess. It's called your ethical dilemma. And you can resolve your ethical dilemma by either taking a new special power, a recruit card, or putting a star on it.
I think that was designed by Jamie Stegmaier, wasn't it? I think it might have been one of his first games, too.
Stegmaier
games.
I don't know who the designer is. It was that company's second published.
It was
title.
Jamie Stegmaier.
Oh, no, it is Jamie
and Alan
Stegmaier,
Stone.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, second published one for him. I knew it was one of the first ones that helped Stonemaier games out a lot.
I find it really interesting, though, because, again, Dan, you said that the game ends when the first person who runs out of their stars, like, plays that last star.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like most games that I've played that have somewhat of a similar ending is, that last person plays the last star, and then that, like, initiates a final round a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But in this, there's no final round. It's just you're the last one out. The first one out.
Right.
It's over. Yeah. And so sometimes I find that I would find that more dramatic, because when you get the games where all of a sudden it gives you that final round, everybody knows, well, at least I get to do one more thing. And in this, it's like, no, you're done because I'm out. And I think that's kind of interesting. I've not played too many games that end like that.
You should play Scythe. Scythe is definitely a victory points game, because you count victory points at that point.
Okay.
The Scythe immediately also ends when the person gets their last star.
Gotcha.
But that's not the game I'm going to talk about. The game I'm going to talk about is Istanbul. It's one of my favorite racing games. There's a lot of racing games that do this.
This is on my short list.
Okay. Oh, snatching them from people all left and right. So in Istanbul, you basically are racing through these different areas or locations in Istanbul that give you different things, and your whole goal in the game is to get gems. And I believe in the max player count, it's 5 gems that you need to get, and the first person to 5 gems. This one you'll actually trigger the end game. So whoever didn't get to take a turn, because you know who the first player is, gets to finish. And the person with the most gems wins. There's a tiebreaker in money, so it's a little borderline. But the whole ending the game and the whole first check to see who wins is all on the gems. And you can get over 5 gems on your last turn, because there's cards that let you take the action twice in that location. So there's a possibility of you getting 2 gems in one turn. But in general,
tying it up.
Yeah, in general, that won't happen, but it can. It can. If you plan really well and you keep that card, it could. But Istanbul's a great game. It doesn't take that long. It takes about an hour to play, I believe. It's pretty quick, especially when people know how to play it and know all the tiles. And it's really cool, too, because it has a variable setup. You can either use the 3 different difficulty ratings that it has across the top and line the tiles up that way, or you can do it randomly. There's just a couple restrictions, like you can't have the black market by the tea house, I think, or something like that. But yeah, Istanbul, love the game. It's really good. Haven't played with any of the expansions. I've only ever played with the base game, but I like it.
Interesting. I was gonna say, you're usually like, get all the expansions. You've only ever played with the base on this one.
I'm finding more that I'm like an Amerithrash player, or however you want to say it. So those games I end up getting most of the expansions for.
Okay.
Oh, because it's more content.
More content. Euros, I love Euros, but I just generally fine with the base game.
Okay.
Some exception.
Yeah, it's kind of something that's changed as we've done this podcast. We started off being very Euro focused, and we've become more and more Amerithrash.
Yeah, I'm sort of valuing theme a lot. Mm-hmm. So if a game has a high immersion level, I'm going to tend to want to play that more.
Yeah.
Yay.
Even over the Euros that I love. Yes, I love immersion. That's why I love theme is the best.
Theme games are fantastic.
Yeah, like I love a good chunky Euro, but it's the theme, the like really Ameritrash games, those are the ones that are memorable. Those are the ones you talk about for weeks afterwards. You're not going to talk about, oh, I got one more point than you in Concordia last week.
I did much better whaling it than you did in Feast for Odin. Ha ha!
But I want to talk about a more literal race game, and that's Flamme Rouge. So Flamme Rouge is a bicycle game where you are, racing to the finish line. So it's really, all it is whoever gets the finish line first wins. Pretty straightforward. Now, it does have a nice card mechanic for movement where you have a deck of cards that has different preset. Everybody has the same deck of cards with a different speed of movement, but if throughout the game you can get exhaustion if you're not playing well, so you're adding those to the deck so that when you draw your hand, you actually might not have as a good selection. If you used up your really great cards early on, you're not going to be moving much later. And if you get blocked off when you're trying to use a big card, you just wasted it. It also has like a drafting mechanic where if you're one space behind the leader, you can move forward for free, one space. It's a really fun, light, quick game. There's a whole bunch of little maps you can get. You can pretty much any real race track you can make, as well as, you can customize, make your own. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of the games I've wanted to play for a while. It's Flamme Rouge.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump in then. And my next game, we were talking about themed games. I love themes. And so, so feeling the need to smash some buttons, to swing some punches. No Xbox or PlayStation at hand? No worries. Grab your favorite fighter's deck in Combo Fighter. This is a great card simulation of the old school fighter video games like Mortal Kombat and Tekken. So I do have one set for this, so I've only got two card decks, because I have found out after I bought this, it's incredibly hard to get right now. And so I'm sad because I wanted the box that came with 4 decks, but I've only got 2 decks. So the only hard part there is I feel like I'm playing the same fight over and over, because I've only got the because every fighter has their own style and the deck leans into that. And so I've played that now a couple times. I really want to get the rest of the decks so that I can have all the different fighters, because just like in Tekken, I didn't want to just fight as the same guy every time or the same lady every time. I wanted to choose from a vast array of fighters and fighting styles. And so I'd like to get the rest of those. But Combo Fighter is a really fun, fast-paced. I mean, you can be done with a hand in like 10-15 minutes as you lay down your different cards, and it works on kind of a paper rock scissor mechanic, where if you play a defense card, then you beat the offense, or if you play the offense, then you beat whatever else. And so there's like 3 different styles in the paper rock scissor, and one beats the other. And then when you get those really good combos, as is in the title Combo Fighter, you can do a ton of damage and make the game. And so the game ends when your hit points, your life points is your deck. And when your deck runs out, so it's a lot of fun. And it's one that I would definitely recommend. It's just one that is right now a little harder to get. I think it might have been like a Kickstarter or something along those lines, and so it's hard to get it in stores. It's hard to get it even online right now. So, but it was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it each time I've played it. I would just like to play it more.
Yeah, I actually listened to a podcast where they did an interview for him too, and it sounded like a really cool game. One thing I'll throw out there in the meantime, because I don't know that it's actually, I'm not sure it actually had a retail release per se, or at least a big one. But one you may want to think about that's a little bit more. So it does take a little longer to play, is Unmatched. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I have not.
In Unmatched, you have a little tiny board, so there's not very many spaces you can go on. And you're going to be like Robin Hood, or the other guy's going to be Bigfoot, or you'll have like legendary heroes, or you'll have raptors, and you'll have a deck of cards that you play with. And you're going to try to knock out the other players. So it's about the same idea. It's pretty quick. The only thing additive to it is that board, so you have a little bit of like a sort of like a extra added element, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
And that one's readily available everywhere. I believe Restoration Games came out with that one.
Gotcha.
All right, I'll go with one. But before I do, Pete, I thought with your intro for sure that you were going to mention like something like Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Thank you for not mentioning Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
I was waiting for like uppercut. You just uppercut them. You uppercut. You uppercut.
Nothing like Rock'em Sock'em Robots is on my list. Full disclosure, I didn't go looking for weird toyetic games that don't use victory points, sort of outside the scope of our content. What was that?
Hungry Hippo.
There you go.
Yeah. But don't you count the marbles after you're done?
Dang it.
All right. My next game is Lewis and Clark. Lewis and Clark is a combination of worker placement and engine building that uses cards. So, of course, I liked this game for a good long while. Lewis and Clark ends as soon as a player moves their camp past the end space on the travel track. So there's this travel track representing your journey across the American West, and it's a mix of river spaces and mountain spaces, and this is to mix up the gameplay to a certain extent because it takes different resources and different special abilities to move through those different kinds of spaces. So if you're really good at moving through the river, you're going to get slowed down when you hit the mountain. And this is how you don't know who's going to win before you clear this last mountain space, really. Like on your turn, you play a card, and usually you tuck another card from your hand beneath it to indicate its like strength, and that allows you to, gather resources or convert resources or to move along the track. And when you declare camp, you pick up. You take a penalty based on the resources that you currently have in your boats and the cards that are remaining in your hand. You move your figure back a certain number of spaces, and then you plop down your camp, assuming at the head of wherever your camp token currently is. And you've got to move that camp token past the finish line. And the first person to declare camp and have that camp token past the finish line wins immediately. This is yet another race game. I'm going to steer away from race games since we've managed to mention half a dozen. So I'm going to get into weirder territory now.
Sounds good. Well, I'll knock out an entire genre then. So most all two-player war games are going to fall for this because they're not going to have victory points, especially objective-based ones. And thematically, one of my favorite ones ever is Star Wars Rebellion. Star Wars Rebellion is an amazing game dripping with Star Wars theme, and you basically play through the original 3 films in the game, and you either win by the Imperials by wiping out the Rebels, or you win by the Rebels win by having their Rebel marker touch the Imperial marker by sabotage or objective. So, and it's a very tense game because the Rebel base is hidden in the game. So it's one of the most tense games I've ever played because either player, it's pretty unique that you feel like you're in a lot of trouble. Regardless of what the state of the game is, you're feeling like, well, if the Imperials just move over 1 foot or one system over, they could blow up my whole planet, and then I just automatically lose. As the Imperials, you're like, where the heck are these rebels? The markers keep coming down. Where the heck are they? And the rebel player's just right beside you, just sweating. So it's really cool because it's completely asymmetric. You cannot beat the Imperials. They'll build more ships. They'll build horrible things. They'll build giant superstar destroyers. They'll build Death Stars. You can have 2 of them in the game flying around, blowing up freaking planets. And the rebels are pretty cool because you can't really fight really well, but you can sabotage. You can complete different objectives by doing like crazy stuff and most of the objectives are you have to put yourself way out there to get them. I just really like it. It does play up to 4 players, but I'd say it's awful with 4. 2 players is what it's best at.
Well, that's a lot better than my choice of war games for this category. So I went for more milking the nostalgic land. So basically, this is a game that we played as a kid. One of the very few games that we played as a kid that I will still play, and that's Battle Master.
Battle Masters is awesome. It doesn't matter. It stands the test of time. That game is amazing. It's
So-
huge. But go ahead.
Yeah. The thing about Battle Master that makes it so appealing is you have this mat that's basically a carpet that you roll out, and you play this on the floor. You can't possibly play it. It'd be pretty difficult to get a bit table that's big enough to play this on. But you put out all these miniatures on bases and build. You have a preset army. You have the noble lords, the knights and archers and whatnot, and then you got the monsters, which are orcs, wolfmans, goblins, and an ogre. And you have a deck of cards that you're drawing from to determine which units get to move each turn. And it can range from a single unit on the good guy side, good guys in quotes, or the entire Chaos Army. So, it can be fairly random, but it's still fun. You're going and slogging on these people, rolling a ton of dice, and just trying to wipe the other person out. And you win the game by simply wiping everybody out.
Yeah, I think that game actually, because we played it when we were kids, and then finding it later on with the command and color system. I'm pretty sure Battle Masters did the commands and color system first, because it's the same thing, like left flank, right flank, middle flank. Move your orcs, move your cannons can move. You can move different unit types. So
it doesn't have flanks in it though. It just has specific units you can move. So it just you can move them however you want, but when you draw the cards, it just shows you what units. Don't believe me?
Oh boy, here we go.
It's still on my.
People did a really good job painting these.
Well, one of the cool things about it is the special units on each side. You got the cannon on one side, and what the cannon does is you have these tiles you can put down to show the path your cannonball is taking, and you flip one tile over for each space, and that could be a clear shot, it could be a bounce, or it can be an explosion. So the further away you fire, the more likely your cannonball is going to explode before it gets there. It could bounce and hit and do damage to an enemy or among your own people if you happen to be firing over your own people. It could, if the first tile you flip is the explosion, you could damage your own cannon.
I hated that. Actually, it just blows up, doesn't it?
No, I think it's just damage, but it's been a while, so I'm not sure. The ogre has a deck of cards where deck of cards is just movement and attack, and every time it takes damage, it just loses a card from the deck. So you could get really lucky, hit it 3 times, and wipe out all its attacks.
Yeah. The other thing is the tower is really cool too. It's a defensive thing, and you can destroy the tower too.
Yep.
I always like getting the archers up on there. I never move the cannon because the cannon's just such a hard thing to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So I always just get the archers in that tower, and then never draw an archer card ever again.
I think we lost both Dan and Peter on this one.
No, I'm sitting here waiting to just because I hadn't really thought a whole lot about war games, and I've not played a ton of strategic war games yet. But one that I have played that now that I'm thinking about would definitely make my list of games with victory points and all that would be Hammer of the Scots. Again, I love a good theme. I like something that draws me back into maybe into something else that I really enjoy. So I really enjoy movies. And I loved the movie Braveheart. And so finding out that I could play a 2-player war game where one player is going to be playing as the English and one player is going to be playing as the Scots, and Robert the Bruce is his name is in there. He's one of the commanders, and so it's just a head-to-head 2-player war game. It's got area movement, it's got dice rolling, which I really enjoy. So it was actually a lot of fun. I've just played it twice, but it was one that I really, really enjoyed. But again, it's a lengthier game. It can run like 2 to 4 hours depending on how long the scenario takes. But if you enjoy history and you want to play a semi-historical war game, Hammer of the Scots, I thought was a fantastic game. It was designed by Tom Dalglish and Jerry Taylor for Columbia Games. It's an older one. It's been around for a little while. It came out in 2002, but definitely one that I would like to play again at some point.
Yeah, that game looks amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
It's definitely, you definitely got into the wargamer area, because that is definitely under the wargamer category.
Yeah, I've got a friend who loves war games, and he said, hey, you're getting into games, you'd like to play some. And I was like, well, out of all the war games that you've got, like, choose one that you think. And of course, he went with one that's like, with some war games, this one could be relatively short compared to other ones. So he went with one. He's like, yeah, we can definitely get this one played in a day. We can just sit down and play this in a couple hours. And so I would definitely, it's one that I would love to actually have it in my personal collection, because I played it and absolutely loved it. And again, it made me think a little bit of being young, being a little kid and playing Stratego. Just because you have your pieces and you see on your side what your pieces are and where you're moving them, but the other person just sees a blank side of the cube. They don't know who they're coming up against. And in Stratego, you're trying to get to that other side and find that flag. So it reminded me a little bit of that. It gave me that nostalgic feel there, but a much more, I guess, air quote, grown-up war game. And just it was definitely one that I felt like really held up. And like I said, I'd love to get it back to the table sometime.
I think you successfully appeased the people that were yelling at their phone at me and James is calling ours war games.
Yeah, I mean, if you get your hands on that game or whatever, I definitely would want to play it with you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, well, again, the friend who owns it lives right here in Butler, so we can definitely we can definitely get our hands on it.
All right, yeah, these are all good picks. No war games actually made it to my list, because the two war games that I have the most experience with actually use points. Like, I played Star Wars Minis by Wizards of the Coast back in the day, and like at the end of a game, if you didn't blow your opponent out of the water, you counted how many points you had defeated, because the units had point values. And the other one is Nexus Ops, and that's like objective based. So each objective is worth like 1 to 3 points, and you win when you hit 12 points. So it's point based. So let's talk about a game that's not points based. No war games for me, folks. Sorry. I'm going to talk a game called Exposed. In Exposed, each of the players is basically a pickpocket on an ocean liner. You have a role that only you know. So you know that you're the doctor, and the doctor is represented by a tile that's on the table, right? And on your turn, you can, move tiles around, or you can perform one of a couple different actions. But all the actions that you can perform have limitations about where you need to be to where you're targeting. So as you perform actions, you're slowly revealing what characters you could possibly be. The game ends when a player accumulates 7 wallets. So successfully steals 7 wallets. The other way you can win is you could be the last player standing. So if all the other players get exposed and all the character tiles flip over to a red side to indicate that they've been exposed, this will happen to non-player characters that are also on the display throughout the course of play. So that is also eliminating possibilities from the game. But if you're the last person standing that is not exposed, you also win. The thing is that if you accumulate some wallets, if you're going for the 7 wallet win, and then you get exposed, bad things happen to you. It becomes increasingly difficult to win, because you lose half the wallets that are in your personal supply, like sitting in your area, and then all your remaining wallets go onto your character card on the board. So now everyone else can steal from you if they get into position. So it's a really it's actually quite an interesting little like hidden role game. So there you go.
Yeah, it seems really neat.
Yeah, I think it looks really nice. Not the best choice of names, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, I was debating whether I need to start like editing this portion out. So I'll do a softball for mine, and I'm going to talk about, and there's a lot of games like this, but this one's theme's pretty neat, and it's called Disney Villainous. So Disney Villainous can play up to 6 players. I believe the base game comes with 4 different villains, and you play as a villain, and the way you win the game is just completing your objective. And each of the villains has a highly asymmetric board and cards that are unique to that villain. And the interaction is the other players can pull out the heroes and throw them at the villain. So if you're like Cruella DeVille, you'll have the puppies show up.
Yeah,
The Dalmatians. Yeah.
It's the Dalmatians. Yeah. Well, either way, you have you'll throw out the heroes for that villain, and they'll have to deal with those before they can complete their objectives, or they'll set them back on their objectives. And it's really cool on how different each of the boards play. Like your objectives are pretty different. So, and there's a lot of games like this, but this one I think had a really good theme to it. So it's basically just going to be an asymmetric race.
Yep. And this is a game that I think will be supported regardless, is because I think you might actually get people buying this game that have no interest in ever playing it, just to collect Disney things.
Yeah, this one actually is a big box game because you can get it at Target and Walmart. And this is one of the few games that Target or Walmart will sell expansions for.
Yeah.
So that's how popular it is. Now, it does help that the expansions, you don't need the base game. You can just play them.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize the expansions were standalone.
Yeah, you're just getting 2 new characters. You could play 2-player. There's no need for the base game. Unless you want more people. So, and then they did Disney our Marvel villainous too now. So you can play as Thanos and all that stuff.
That sounds more like it.
Yeah.
Now the question is, can you mix and match? Can you have Thanos going after Cruella DeVille?
I believe you cannot. I believe. I could be wrong, but I believe you can't. If you could, that'd be really cool. have a Thanos versus Steamboat Willie. Steamboat.
I've heard it's a fun game. I mean, James, how many times have you played this now?
Just once.
Just the one time? And
yeah.
Okay.
I don't own a copy yet, but it's a lot of fun.
How do you not own this game yet with 5 daughters?
I know.
It's a fair question.
It is.
It is.
Have your daughters played it?
No.
Well, then how did you who did you play it with? How did you?
I played it with adult friends.
I was just wondering how did this make it to the
Disney
table? I was sure one of your daughters was like, oh, it's villain, it's Disney, let's play, but no.
I wasn't gonna say anything and just keep dragging it out. Okay.
I fully expect a coup d'etat in the Wilson household, with the daughters being upset you haven't played this with them.
Seriously.
Yeah. Good thing a good portion of them are in college.
Well, Nathan, what do you got next?
Okay, so I have one to cover the dexterity genre, which pretty much any dexterity game will fall under this. But I specifically wanted to talk about Rhino Hero. Rhino Hero, I generally don't like dexterity games, but Rhino Hero I did quite enjoy. Rhino Hero is basically a tower building. You start with a hand of 5 cards, and you have like roof tiles that you have to place, but there'll be certain restrictions on how you can place those based on the card. And then you're, folding cards to put as the wall between each roof tile. And the game basically goes to whoever manages to use all their cards first, or you're out of the game if you knock down your own tower.
Doesn't sound amazing, but the game is amazing.
I was gonna say I'm just flipping through pictures right now, and I'm like I want to play this game.
Yeah. I really want to play. I have Rhino Hero, but I also really want to play Rhino Hero Super Battle.
Yeah.
Which is like the one on steroids for that.
So yes, I believe Super Rhino Hero basically adds a little combat mechanism where it's a mild combat mechanism where you fight to knock somebody down a level. And it's basically you're trying to get your little hero up to the highest level.
Also, moving around those little in Rhino Hero, you have a little Rhino Hero. You have to move on to each level. Putting that little weighted character on those levels is dangerous too. And Rhino Hero Super Battle, moving those things is dangerous too.
So is it the super battle part? I don't think I quite understand. What's the battle part? I must have misunderstood it.
So if you're on the same level, you roll a dice, and if you get a certain result, you knock the other person's hero down a level, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. You just move. So you move that person down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you play as either Rhino Hero, Giraffe Boy, Biggie, or Bat Gwen.
Interesting. So okay, so have there been any? See, and I'm sitting here thinking of this game, and I'm like, this is. I feel like it's ripe for like some kind of intellectual property. How have they not done like Disney's? What's Disney's Wreck-It Ralph? Like a Wreck-It Ralph version of this game. It's what it's making me think of, anyways.
The games are both made by Haba.
Yeah,
I don't
I
believe
see that.
Haba actually does like any IP-based stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. There's at least one Haba game that I think that we've played. We have at the library and let go out, and the kids really like it. But I can't remember what it is right now.
They have a really good lineup of for Haba.
Nice. My next game, I'm going to jump into the all popular party game, and that is a game that I'm sure at this point everybody knows it, and I don't know if they love it or hate it, but I love it. It's fun every single time with my group of friends, and that is Code Names. Team up and meld minds with your best friends and try to get them to guess the right. I like those Spy Master type games where you have one person trying to get the other ones to get it. Again, a newer game kind of in the same vein-ish is that Just One. So anytime you get a group of friends together and you're trying to get them to guess the right words. But I like Codenames because unlike Just One where it's a cooperative, everyone's playing together, Codenames, you do have that added your heads up against the other team. And every time you play this game, it just devolves into the other team trying to mess with the minds of the other team, trying to get them to guess the wrong words. But I've played this a bunch, and I really enjoy it. So it is one that I would definitely recommend that people give a try if they haven't yet. This is one that I've only played. Again, I've only played with the base game. I know that they've done a ton of different games though, and versions of this game at this point. There's also one that's just like images and pictures instead of words. But yeah, Codenames, definitely one that I would recommend.
That's a good one.
I actually prefer Codenames Duet, the 2-player version of it.
Okay.
Which you wouldn't think that would work based on if you played Codenames, but it works pretty well. You are essentially cooperating. You basically have two different versions of the code.
Mm-hmm.
On the reverse sides, and basically you're trying to get the other person to get all yours and then guess all theirs as well without ever hitting the assassin.
Oh, well, that sounds fun. Okay, yeah. I'll have to look into that one because I've not played that version.
No, I also had thought about putting Codenames on as well, and then I was realizing you could put pretty much any party game on because even though most of them have scoring, who really cares?
Right? Yeah.
Me, because I win.
How about Dixit? You win a Dixit?
All right, moving on. How about Dan's game?
Yeah. I could mention one last race, or I could go into games that do use victory points but have a weird twist to them. Where do you guys want me to go next?
Do another race one.
Yeah, dude, I was going to say, because I don't know that I know race games very well. So what's another good one?
So, last race game for me is called Steampunk Rally. Steampunk Rally is a race game. In this game, you are a famous inventor invited to this mountain course to build a horrible contraption and race it against other inventors' horrible contraptions to determine who is the best inventor of them all. Okay? It is a drafting game. So each round of this game, you get 4 cards from 4 different decks, by the way. And you have to pick a card. And then when you pick a card, you can actually do one of 3 things with it. You can discard it and just take dice, which you'll need to fuel your machine to go. You can pitch it to take cogs, which allow you to clear dice out of your machine quicker and therefore go a little bit faster. Or you can build it as a part to your machine. And the parts on your machine can give you points of movement or can give you points of like defense / armor, because there's like rough terrain spots on this course that will cause you damage. You can just build a bunch of parts on your machine so that when you take damage, the parts get blown off and run at high risk like that. So there's really quite a lot of interesting options this game. And one of the 4 decks is filled with nothing but called boost cards, which you sort of set aside and play at opportune moments to catch up or basically hose the leader, one or the other. Anyway, the game ends when the first player crosses the finish line. That doesn't immediately end the game. It causes an end game. When that happens, everyone, including that player who crossed the finish line, gets one final turn, and then the player that is the most spaces away from the finish line, like past it, is the winner.
I mean, that one sounds like a lot of fun. And that one, I know that we've mentioned a few race games, but one earlier was Istanbul was a race game. But that one doesn't really feel so much like a finish, like an actual finish line race, where this one leans really heavily into that theme of it being like a car race almost.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a lot of fun. I like the idea of the 4 different decks as well.
I like that one a lot, and I have one that, unlike its predecessor, that does require a lot of victory points, and some people don't like the calculations on it. I like the dual version of it, and that is 7 Wonders Duel.
Ah, okay.
So in 7 Wonders Duel, there's no victory points in it. You simply either win by military victory or collecting all the technologies. That's it. So it's really nice. It's a really cool way of making a drafting game with only 2 players. And you're going to set out these different things, and some of the cards are face up and some of the cards are face down. And when an opponent drafts one of the cards, they check to see if they flip a card over, or if it's already flipped, that card's now, the card underneath it's now available for the other player. So there's a lot of thinking where you have to think, well, I could really use this one, but I don't want to risk giving my opponent a thing that moves the military marker a little farther over. And every time the military marker moves, you actually can get bonuses and stuff that occur when it hits different points, which is nice. But yeah, mine was 7 Wonders Duel. Fast, easy, nice 2-player game.
Question: is there an end state where a player doesn't achieve one of those 2 victory conditions, or is that it?
Well, so there is, which I've never had happen, but you can have, if you get to a point where no one actually wins, then it is actually scored by victory points.
Okay, but you
so
say that's rare.
Yeah, normally someone's going to either get all the technologies or win with a military victory. That's more common.
Okay.
But you could theoretically somehow, through the 3 rounds, not have either of those occur. And balance them all out. But a lot of times if you start fighting someone with the military and pulling them down, they can sneak in some of those technology cards and get that win that way. If neither of the opponents are focusing on either of those and they're just trying to get points, maybe.
Well, I have a relatively underrated game that I've played recently that I really enjoy. It's another race game. I kind of encouraged Dan to do his race game, so I have an excuse to talk about another race game myself. But Around the World in 80 Days. Now, this is a game I've played a couple times, and the first time I played it with 6 people. It was phenomenal. It was actually a fairly take that game. You're like vying to get to the certain spots on the board, and constantly pushing and pull of making sure you get the spots, making bets based on what position you think you're going to be on the board, and doing things to make sure they don't win their bet, and it's at the high player counts. It's really, really kind of tight and constant push and pull. I did notice though, I played it once on the lower player counts with only 3 players, and that's all gone. So that's unfortunate. With lower player counts, it becomes a pure math game. It's still interesting and fun, but not nearly as fun as the constant push and pull. I just realized I haven't actually explained what the game is, so let's get into that. So in the game, they take a kind of a reverse of the normal race game. You start with a certain amount of money, and you have to manage that money. You have to spend money to move down the board. You can make money by going backwards. You can make money by landing on certain spots that allow you to bet on what position you think you're going to be on the board. But the key of it to the game is by the time you get to the end of the board, you have to get rid of 3 rumor tokens, so bad rumors about you, so you return to London without any suspicion. But you also have to return with almost no money. So you have to make sure you've spent all your money and have less than 10 pounds left to be able to actually finish. So it is an efficiency puzzle in that sense, but that is kind of concealed by the take that in the large player count.
Dead
We're all
silent.
speechless.
Mic
Oh,
drop.
the other more important thing about this game is, like Lewis and Clark, be careful because there's 3 other versions of this that have nothing to do with it. So make sure you get it. If you want to get this, get the one from 2016 with the red box cover.
So there's different versions of the same game?
Well, it's different games with the same name.
Different games with the same name is the problem.
Oh, okay.
With Lewis
I
and
gotcha.
Clark. Yeah.
Yeah, Lois and Clark has like 12 different games with the same name.
Oh
And
my
I've
gosh.
got 6 of them, and they're not the right one.
Oh, that's no fun. That's no fun at all.
You should look up to see if that's available online somewhere, James. Maybe you can pick it for the game we play together. Then you'll finally have played the game, right?
I'll probably wait all this time, and I'm like, I don't like this. Okay.
Maybe.
All right. So
happens.
for my next one, time for you and your friends to explore that haunted mansion on the hill, but beware the devil in disguise, because one of your own may be preparing your demise. So Betrayal at House on the Hill is absolutely one of my favorites. I like games where like the rest of the team groups up against one person. I think it's a lot of fun, and then the added benefit of like you don't know which player is going to end up being the betrayer until the haunt is revealed, I think for me is a lot of fun. I know some people dread that moment because they just don't want to be the bad guy. They don't want to have to worry about it because there's a lot of reading involved. And yes, if you're playing the original Betrayal at House on the Hill, some of the different missions are a little bit harder to parse than others. They might have been some of them better written than others to be more understandable. But it is a lot of fun. I think go into this game ready just to have a good time. Go into it ready to dive into the theme of the game. If you want to role play a little bit with your character, I think it lends itself to that. And if you really have a lot of time on your hands and you want to have a great time, get Betrayal Legacy, because it does everything I think a good legacy game is meant to do on top of a really fun game. So no victory points included. You'll win when the haunt. So the game is, everybody's exploring the haunted mansion until all of a sudden the haunt begins. One person becomes the bad guy. Everybody else is trying to destroy the bad guy or just flee as quickly as they possibly can as the bad guy tries to destroy them. So most of the time it is the bad guy trying to kill all the heroes, or the heroes trying to kill the bad guy, or like I said, maybe even really just run away if possible, stop them from doing whatever nefarious deed it is they're trying to do. And again, the legacy version of this, on top of it, you're getting to tell, this isn't really giving much away, you're getting to tell the history of this house, which I think is a lot of fun. You play it chronologically through the years, I think starting back in like the 1600s, and each scenario is moving you chronologically through time, and you play each round as a different ancestor of the previous hero that you played, or villain, depending if you were the bad guy or not. And you get to keep track of that, and it tells a fun little story, and you get your little journal where you write down notes about each of the different scenarios that happened, and write down the fun names that everybody came up with for their characters. So Betrayal at House on the Hill, and if you really Betrayal Legacy, if you can get it to the table with your friends, it's like 14 different scenarios. It definitely pays for itself in fun.
So Peter, I'm understanding, like, I remember the base game. The first game has like 50 different haunts, and they're radically different, almost completely different game for each haunt, which is cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But because of that, can you guarantee there's no victory points in this game?
I've played it, and I can 90% guarantee that there's no victory points, because I've never out of all the times I've played this game, and I've played probably at this point, I would say 15 to 20 times, and each time was a different mission. I've not played all 50 missions, so I can't 100% guarantee that there's no victory points. But I would really, really doubt that at any point in time did they turn one of those mysteries or scenarios into a victory point scenario. But I could be wrong.
I think it'd be funny. So they
The
open.
pot
What
is
are you doing?
revealed, and suddenly everyone's a farmer in 17th century
Yeah.
France, and we're playing
They lift up the top bottom of the box, and Agricola falls out.
That's a good one, though. That's a good
But
one.
yeah,
That's,
I always have to throw Betrayal in, so I'm glad I got the chance.
Your entry on Betrayal Legacy and Betrayal made me think that there's probably a decent number of like asymmetrical or otherwise, one side versus another or one player versus another game there where there are no victory points. Like we could mention like probably half a dozen abstracts, which we won't mention.
Yeah.
I will instead mention a game called this is starting to stretch it, so bear with me. This game is called Lost Valley: The Yukon Gold Rush. This game is a tile laying game. You are a prospector during the gold rush. So you're a grizzled 1800s prospector. Your goal is to go out there and pick up gold nuggets. Now, the gold nuggets are buried in fields and in mountain tiles. In order to get the ones out of the field tiles, you need to build irrigation and pan for gold. In order to get the ones out of the mountain tiles, you need to build mining tunnels. The ones that are out that you can get out of the field are easier to access in terms of both like resources, number of actions that takes in order to set up your little supply chain. And then the game ends in one of two ways. One way is a player goes back to base camp and weighs in. By weighing in, they're saying, hey, I've got enough of these gold nuggets. I'm declaring that the game's going to end soon. When they weigh in, they sort of reveal the tokens that they've collected and count how many nuggets are on them. There's less nuggets that are on the tokens that are in the river spaces compared to the mountain spaces. So if you go for the mountain gold, you're going to have way more nuggets than if you go for just like all river gold. And you're going to go back to base camp to get more gear for your character to go out to get more gold, at least once in the middle of this game as well. So you weigh in. So one player weighs in, and then all the other players have like 3 turns to finish what they're doing and get back to base camp and also weigh in. And if one of the other players weighs in with more nuggets than the first player, they win. Otherwise, the first player wins. The other way this game can end is by triggering winter. So as you explore this valley, there's a river that runs through it, and the river tiles are triangle tiles compared to the normal land trapezoid tiles. And when you place the last river tile, that puts an ice flow marker on the source of the river, representing the start of winter. So now, from now on, at the beginning of every round, you roll that die, because the marker is a die, and the marker can advance down the river towards base camp, 1 or 2 spaces, do nothing, or actually recede 1 space back towards the source, where it started. And when the die reaches base camp, that is also the...
Yeah, I've actually seen this game a couple times, and it looked pretty neat.
Yeah, what do you call it? It's very interesting because you have these equipment and ability to like set up infrastructure in the game that then anyone could take advantage of. Like you can build an irrigation channel, and then anybody can use that irrigation channel to chain irrigation to somewhere else or to pan for gold in the same space, because like the meeples that represent characters stand on the intersections between tiles, so you actually have access to several tiles at once in any given location.
Yeah, I'm also seeing there's a couple different versions of the game. You're specifically talking about the Yukon Gold Rush one, right?
Yeah, it was put out by Pandasaurus, if I remember right.
Yes, there is a Lost Valley, and then there's a version called Lost Valley Yukon Gold Rush, which is the newer version.
Yeah, the newer version by Pandasaurus is the one that I play. Yep.
Yeah.
The game plays half like a open world-ish game because you can go anywhere and do everything, but there's also this pressure of this race because you want to get gold. You want to get as much gold as possible. You want to get it as quickly as possible. So.
All right. So I got a news piece that I really want to go over, but this is my last game.
Okay.
And this is actually my last game because it's a game that I want to play and I'm intrigued with. And it's also a game that doesn't have points, victory points. So the way this game works out, and it's Inish, is it fits a lot of my thematic things. It's very Celtic theme on there. I love the art and stuff. I know some people don't like the art in it, whatever. I like the art in it. I love the map tiles that you put out because they're like these neat, cool little shapes and stuff. And they have arts of different areas like Stonehenge and stuff. But the crux to the game is you win by just achieving one of 3 different victory conditions. You can either control 6 different territories, so you have the land win. You can have your clans present in territories that collectively contain at least 6 sanctuaries, so you can have the religion win. And you can have the leadership win, where you have more clan figures than any other players. But the cool thing is when you meet that thing, you don't win yet. You have to then say you're going to win, so you become the Brennan, and then your opponents can try to prevent you from winning. So it's cool because it's a push and pull area control, area majority style game. So it's not simply just like blow up everyone in there. That's only one of 3 different ways of winning.
I want to know who doesn't like this art, because I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love the art on
this
that.
Game's got good
amazing
art.
art. I know a couple of reviewers were complaining about the art in the game, but it matches.
Yeah, it fits the theme really well.
Yeah, It's wonderful art.
I mean, it's unique, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's the art style that fits the theme. So I like the fact that they didn't use a different art style; they actually made it look Celtic.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And I love Celtic art. So you get a lot of that. Trying to think of what it's called when they in book form, when they put it into a book they call it something. I'm not going to think of the word for it now because I'm a librarian and it's just
that's just how that works.
It's just how it works.
You have to put on the shame hat now.
I know. I am. I do. I have my shame hat on it right this minute.
What, you're looking for? What, portfolio? Is that the word you're looking for?
No, that's not it. But I'll think of it as soon as we're done tonight. So.
Yeah. Like as soon as everyone hangs up, you'll be like, ah.
Right. Exactly.
This game definitely. I'm going to get it eventually, and definitely going to have you guys play it because I have a couple friends that have gone through the game and they love it. I really do like the idea of like once you get to that victory thing, then you have to actually hold it. Like you say, wow, and you can't sneak up. You're just like, well, you can sneak up to say that you got it, but you still announce that you have it. So it's not like, oh, I just automatically win. It's like, I'm going to win. And you have to tell everyone, and everyone else is like, maybe not.
Illuminated manuscript.
There you go.
That's what I was looking for. Illuminated manuscript.
I'm going to cut that out and put it at the end of the podcast to be like, he didn't remember to the end.
That sounds. Yeah. I think it sounds like a really interesting game, and it looks nice. So. I wonder if that one's on but again, this is one you've not played. This is one you would like to play.
No, I left this one for last because I've never played it. It's been one of the games that's been floating around. It was out of print for a really long time, and then they printed a newer box version of it recently. So.
Okay.
So I have 2 whole categories I haven't talked about yet. One of them was like player elimination or survival, which Peter talked about a little bit. The other one was deduction. So I'll just, pick a game that gonna cover both of those. And that's Letters from Whitechapel.
I want to hear about this because one of the ones on my want to play list was Whitehall Mystery, which I know is related to this game. So a lot of people compare this to Fury Dracula. One of the big things it takes out of Fury Dracula is the combat, which I personally hate. A lot of people do like the combat in Fury Dracula. I think it's just too messy and confusing. Whitechapel is a pure deduction game. One player plays as Jack the Ripper, and they have to murder women of the night, and then they have to escape. So you know where that murder occurred, and your team, as up to 4 players playing against Jack the Ripper, have to go around the board, try to surround the area where they think Jack is, and look for clues, look for places he's been, evidence he's left behind. Basically, if they examine the spot, you can know if he was there before. If he was currently there, all
all I was going to say is at one point he was there. And then eventually you have to try to make an arrest, and you have to say, okay, I'm going to make arrest at this spot. Are you there? So you can either, get information, say you were there at one point, or you were never there, or make an arrest. It's really cool. The board is really well laid out in that, there are all these little side paths you can take where it looks like, oh, he couldn't possibly be over there, but then you see this little tiny side path that could have got them there faster. So yeah, really phenomenal deduction.
So this is one that I've heard about and I've wanted to play, but I got confused at one point because they also came out with Whitehall Mystery, which my understanding is it's like a slightly more pared down when it comes to the rules of the game. But they're supposed to be it's the exact same creators or designers, same designers. But they came out with Letters from Whitechapel in 2011, and then Whitehall Mystery was in 2017. So since I've not played either of them, I don't know the real big difference. The boards look very similar. The story is similar. The game you're playing, but I just heard that it's like maybe slightly less rules heavy or something. I'm not sure. So, but it's definitely one that has been on my, like, I had it typed up on my list of want to plays. So I'm glad I'm hearing a really good review from you on it, Nathan, because that makes me excited to eventually get this one to the table.
I don't know. It's I haven't played Whitehall Mysteries. I would say Letters from Whitechapel is fairly simple to as far as rules. There are a few optional rules that make it a little bit more complicated, but I don't think it's very difficult. The only thing that I would say is a downside to Letters from Whitechapel is I've never seen Jack the Ripper win.
Really?
But I'm sure you could talk to somebody else who may have had the opposite experience. And that's common with these one versus many games where, based on the play group, one side might be favored, and it's not necessarily fault of the game, it's just the way that group plays.
Okay.
Yeah, I only gotten this to the table myself, and I was an investigator, and we did catch Jack the Ripper on, like, the last night of the game. It takes place in, like, 5 rounds or something like that, right?
Yeah.
You can play Fury of Dracula. Dracula has a better chance of winning.
I've never seen Dracula win once I've seen Dracula win in Fury of Dracula. Then that's when I was playing Dracula.
There you go. There you go.
But then, again, same thing. I've heard people say that Dracula always wins, whereas I've had the opposite experience.
I don't know how balanced Scotland Yard is, too, but that's an older game.
Okay.
Yep. That's same basic concept, but yeah.
Yeah, all those are on the same linear line.
Well, since my want to play was pretty much the exact same game that Nathan just talked about, I'm going to go ahead and pass on this last round. So, Dan, if you want to go next.
I might as well mention one more. I've only got games that actually do use victory points left on my list, so I'll simply pick the one that's the strangest and talk about it. This game was a very early add to my collection. The game is called Archipelago. In Archipelago, each player is dealt a card at the beginning of the game, and this card has 2 halves in it. One half tells you when the game is over. So in a 3-player game, there's 3 different end conditions, and any one can trigger. So when your end game condition triggers, you have to be the one that says, hey, this game is over, right? Like immediately too. The second half of the card is something that is worth victory points, and this thing that is worth victory points that only you know about, everyone can score for. So part of the game is actually figuring out what other people's victory point things are so that you can score a couple points on them. And the third piece that really makes the game work is, like, victory points are extremely tight. If you're going to win this game, you're going to win it off 1 or 2 points, because the way things score is like, okay, well, the player, say money is worth victory points. The player at the most money is going to get 3. The player at the second most is going to get 2. It doesn't matter how much money that first player has. They could have 10 more, 5 more, or 20 more. That person in second place is still going to score only 1 victory point less than them, which certainly makes it interesting.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Archipelago, and most of the reviews a lot of people really love it, but either they really love it or they hate it.
Yeah, the game does have a semi-co-op like into it because there's two like hidden role cards in the game that could be dealt out to players. One is the Separatist. You're colonizing an archipelago, in the American Caribbean. Abstractly, it's not an actual map, but there's one card that represents a Separatist, and if the colony goes into rebellion, that person wins alone. And there's another card called the Pacifist, where when the game ends, if the colonists, if the unrest is not high enough, they will score 3 victory points alone, which is certainly enough to win this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been a Grail game for me for a long time, and I actually did manage to pick it up a while ago, but I've been a little bit nervous about getting into table because it does seem like it might be a little bit of a hard teach.
I don't think it's a hard teach, but absolutely you need like 3 or more players for this game because you don't even deal out those more interesting hidden role cards with only 2 players in the game. It is playable at 2, but at that point, I think it's much closer to just like a generic cube pusher.
Yeah, it's definitely a game I want to try. I like the idea of trying to figure out how the other players are scoring points and stuff. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm going to move on to my super news piece for the day, and it's about
one news item. Go for it.
one news item. It's about the greatest board game designer on the face of the planet.
Who could that be? Yeah. Stephen
I'm sorry.
No.
Alexander Fisher? Who?
No. So the greatest designer on the face of the planet, Eric Lang, is leaving his executive role on CMON Games to become a freelance board game designer again.
Interesting.
So the cool thing about this is it looks like he's leaving on friendly terms because CMON's really nice about it. He's really nice about it. And they have a huge slate of games they're going to make. I believe it was at least 12. But one of the things I was really interested in is he's making a sequel to Blood Rage.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see that. That's awesome.
Yep, and he's making an adaptation for Cyberpunk 2077, and he's working on a game with Michael Elliott, codenamed Barge. But I'm really excited about the Blood Rage sequel. I'm actually excited about him leaving CMON just because it seemed like he was getting into a linear design path with them.
Mm-hmm.
And he's designed a lot of different types of games. So
yeah, publishers should have like an identity that they want to gear towards. Like they have to sell to a certain kind of customer, and that kind of customer sort of expects a certain kind of game or a certain production quality. I can see where, as a designer, he might want to do something different for a little while. So
yeah, be able to do his own thing again. Because he's come up with a lot of different types of games and like unique games. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be neat. I'm pretty sure the Blood Rage sequel will be a Kickstarter, and pretty sure I'll just blindly back that.
You, along with many other people, I have no doubts.
Now, I do love Blood Rage. Blood Rage is one of my favorite games. There's a couple things that I would like to see to add a little more when you do like the drafting of the cards and stuff and some of the cards that are in the game, that I'm hoping show up in the Blood Rage sequel. Not that there's anything intrinsically wrong with Blood Rage, it'd be cool to have like a couple more strategies, a couple different ways to like circumvent things. There is in Blood Rage and there isn't. It just depends on like drafting and order and stuff. But I mean, I'm interested to see what they do with the Blood Rage sequel. But for me, that was super big news that he's leaving CMON.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was wondering what your thoughts were going to be, because I saw that come out on Twitter yesterday or the day before. And then I saw this morning on his Twitter feed that he mentioned one of the things that he's working on is he's finally going to be making a family game, which he said has been a dream of his for a while now, to make a family game. So I don't know specifically what he means by that, because he's not getting into details or anything, but thought that sounded interesting.
He's designed a ton of different games. He's done Quarriors. He did Dice Masters, which was really both of them really popular. He's done. I'm trying to think of the train game that he did was really cool and unique. What was that game? That game was he did Victorian Masterminds, which was interesting.
I have a random question, which I will allow the
Sure.
gallery to answer while you are thinking. So, what would be the sequel to Blood Rage? Because Blood Rage was about the end of the world, right?
I don't know that I don't know that it's like going to not be the end of the world. I had no idea. I mean, I'd be super happy with Blood Rage Second Edition.
It could be the mechanical successor without being the thematic
Right.
storyline successor.
Yeah.
But if it is the thematic storyline successor, the only place you could go would be a creation myth. That's the only thing that could follow the end is a new beginning.
Well,
True.
It could actually be set in Valhalla, and it'd just be an endless feast.
Oh, yeah. So, like, you have to manage lines and get to the good stuff before it gets taken by all the other Vikings. Yeah.
Oh wait, that sounds like Feast for Odin.
Oh well.
Well, that game's been made, been there, done that.
I'm almost wondering if he's gonna like gear it up to be more monster based, more focused on that. I know Ankh left that a little bit, where you just play as God and there's less monsters. And Rising Sun was crazy monster based, which I think was like the reason why Rising Sun out of the three of them is my least favorite, but still good. Because the game, I don't know. I know Nathan's played Rising Sun.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you two?
But you've spoken on this before. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just gets more and more complicated, ridiculous for how many different monsters you can bring out and stuff and all the rules that change. But the name of the game I'm thinking about is called Trains and Stations by Eric Lang.
Oh.
And you basically place out dice to make rail lines and stuff. It's pretty cool. But it'll be neat. He's done a ton of games, so it'll be really neat seeing him make a family weight game, make all these different type of games that he probably couldn't have made under Simon. Still world's greatest designer.
I may have found my second favorite designer. I guess it would have to be.
Okay,
My first favorite apparently has to be Scott Alms. Did all the Tiny Epic games because
your first has to be Eric Lang. So second is Scott Alms. Continue.
But my second, it might be Alexander Fischer because I played 3 of his games and I've liked all of them thus far. And those 3 games, for the record, are Oh My Goods, the card game. We just played Expedition New Dale on Tabletop Simulator Day, me and my brother. And the third one being Maracaibo.
Yep. He also did Port Royale, too.
And Isle Sky.
Broom Service. Broom Service is the one he made that I really want to play.
Yeah, I want to play that.
Oh, yeah, Great Western Trail. He did that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of want to try that, but I'm also scared too because it's weighted heavier than I'm usually comfortable with.
I mean, if you want to try Great Western Trail one of these times, I'll play it with you because it's been up there. I mean, in general, I don't know what it is about Western themes, but Western themes, meh, for me. But I still want to try this game.
All right, you need your space lasers or your You
need my space lasers or the cats with the lasers. It's cool.
Thank you for listening. If you have any feedback for us, feel free to visit us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Board Game Geek Guild 2989, or our website at tabletopgamingguild.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and or subscribe. Tabletop Gaming Guild is a product of Tabletop Gaming Guild, LLC. All rights reserved.